Hey everyone, you are now listening to Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow on the Clear Source Radio Network. And as always, thank you so much for listening.
Standing at the corner.
Everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. Here we are once again on Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow, part of the Clear Source Radio Network, where people inspire people. Also heard now on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, my name's Melanie Rogers and I'm your host. I hope that you are having a wonderful week. Hope the weather is beautiful. It's getting really hot here in Atlanta, but no complaints. Every single year, you see people complain about the winter. It's so cold. Oh my gosh, the winter's so long, all this kind of stuff. Next thing you know, it's hot as Hades and people are complaining about it. I reflect back each time we go through major weather, like when it's super, super cold and the winter seems to last forever here in Georgia, which is only once in a blue moon. It doesn't last that long too often, but every once in a while we will have a longer hot season or a longer cold season. And this past year we actually had a lot longer cold season, or at least it felt like that, than we're used to. So anyway, what I automatically do is when I want to start complaining, I immediately flip the switch in my head and I reflect on the summers and how hot it gets and how I'm kind of sensitive to the heat. I'm becoming newly sensitive to the cold. I think that's an age thing, but anyway, moral of the story is, once again, be cautious what you're throwing out there when you make complaints about things like that, because next thing you know, we're going to be back in the winter and begging for this summer weather. So anyway, yeah, it is getting warm here. I'm actually glad that I worked so much on my deck when I did. I told you about that weeks and weeks ago. Actually, I think now it's probably been about 3 weeks to a month ago since I started my work on my deck, which was really, really, really hard work. I still have yet to finish that, but I am thanking God above that everything happened in perfect timing to get me out there with such angst, because that was part of my week that I've talked about a few different times. The week that I took off to kind of detach from society, get some stuff done, get some stuff caught up with, ground myself, all this kind of stuff. Well, getting my deck boards replaced was a big part of that week. And now I tell you, it was perfect weather. I am so glad that after all these years, I finally dove in and made that decision and just did it. And I did it when I did it, because it was just perfect weather for me to do it. And now I walk outside, once again, not complaining, just kind of looking back and being thankful, which is what I'm doing, being thankful that I chose that time to do the really, really hard work. Because this past weekend and this past week, actually, every time I went outside, I put my saw outside so that I can continue working on my floorboards in my bedroom, which are done. So, and don't know if I've caught anyone up with that, but now my bamboo in my bedroom is done. So another project almost done. I have to put the baseboards up. But anyway, I'm going all over the place, I know. I did put my saw out on the back deck, so all I had to do was walk out there literally for about 5 seconds, and it was so hot, I just started sweating like crazy, and all I can think of, instead of complaining, all I can think of was, boy, it was a good thing that I was working on those deck boards a month ago. It was perfect timing. So finally, things seem to be coming together in that area where I'm actually, making a plan, and plans that are working. So anyway, that's just that. Still a work in progress, and so is my house. So that'll catch up on all that. How's that? All right. I hope that everyone had a safe Memorial Day weekend. This past weekend, of course, was Memorial Day. And, I'm not going to get extreme when I talk about this. A lot of people, understandably so, people who have lost loved ones in the war, some pretty tragic. All lives lost are tragic in one way or another, especially when it comes to war. But I can understand where some people would be a little sensitive about this. People who've served would be a little sensitive about this as well. When Memorial Day has become an automatic celebration in the fact that people a lot of times, people neglect to pay attention to the reason the holiday exists. And I think that that's kind of showing society in general. And it does have a little bit to do, a little tiny bit mindset-wise, having to do with the show I chose to talk about tonight in a moment. But my point with this is, I guess I look at society as a whole as we've become a little desensitized in general. And we're a lot of times people are forgetting the basis behind a lot of things. Something like Memorial Day is to reflect back on those who gave their lives for our freedom. Okay? It's not just, hey, it's, graduations are done, all this is the perfect time to go to the beach and all this kind of stuff. I kind of wonder how many people who do that actually even reflect on the reason at all. I know a lot of people do, though, so I'm not trying to make a general statement, but I guess my point is when I try to catch myself from saying Happy Memorial Day, because to me it's an oxymoron. Memorial Day, even though it's considered a holiday, and a lot of times people consider holidays a happy celebration, I think it's more a day of reflection, of sad times, of loss, and respect. Paying our respect to those who gave the ultimate, which was their lives, for our freedom. So I hope everyone did have a safe Memorial Day. If you were off and if you did go and, choose to take that weekend or Memorial Day itself and go to the beach or, do whatever, I hope you did enjoy yourself as well. But, and like I said, I'm not going to get extreme about it. Some people will, put it out there pretty hardcore and almost bring everyone down that much more. And some people, just want to keep it all a happy event. I'm in the middle. I don't want to sit around and make it a very dismal day. Of course, I worked. I worked most often. I worked. That's that military mindset where I just keep neglecting to make any kind of plans anyway. But I'm okay when I work certain holidays, such as Memorial Day. Kind of feel patriotic where I work, of course. Being one of the people who do work during that holiday. But like I said, I'm middle of the road. I hope you enjoyed your holiday weekend. I would hope that everyone took a moment to reflect back. And my heart goes out to all those people who chose to do things like show their respect by visiting the cemeteries and all of the historical places and such that, were battlegrounds and such. So anyway, I just hope everyone is safe this past weekend, got home safe and everything else. Okay. Now, this is a little bit of a hodgepodge, to tell you the truth. A little bit of a hodgepodge show tonight. It really only came up, it's a general concept. Why I say that my happy, sad Memorial Day greeting has a little something to do with it. It doesn't really, but it's along the same mindset of taking things personally that aren't meant to be personal, or reacting in a desensitized way, overreacting in a let's put it this way. How should I word this? Overreacting to situations and taking things personally that are very not personal because we are actually desensitized. Does that make sense? We're so desensitized as society that a lot of times we will overreact to situations and take them personally that aren't even personal. That sounds a little bit like an oxymoron, but it's not. And this is the craziest way. This is the way my brain works, of course. But I thought it was kind of interesting when I really started brainstorming and thinking about it. Here's the story. So, and this is the simplest thing ever, and it's not like this is the first time I thought about something like this, but I really started thinking about it, and my mind was racing this day, so I kept going further and further and deeper, and then I'm like, oh, you know what, this is interesting. I think, all else fails, I'm going to talk about this on Tuesday. I was on my way to work one day last week. Okay, no big deal. I had kind of an emotional week. Last week was a little bit of an emotional week for me. I've been dealing with some things on a personal level. I've talked about some of it. Some of it is just, stuck inside, of course. Just too personal to talk about. Whatever. I, as well as a lot of other people around who I know right now, people I know personally, people I know on Facebook, I know that there's a lot of people who are going through emotional times right now. And with that being said, a lot of times when we go through emotional times, more often than when we're not going through something emotional, we tend to get defensive inside. Our minds are usually, when I say we, I mean me, our minds are usually kind of struggling to hold on to something, struggling to let go of something, struggling to control something. And when that happens, a lot of times any external things that might happen, we respond defensively because we're feeling a lack of control. Okay, now at least that's the way it is in my world. So I assume that that's the way it works because, like I said, I visualize. And this is how I visualize things with me. When I'm going through a really difficult time, especially when it's in many different areas of life, and I feel like I'm actually going through a phase of life that's very difficult, with no immediate answers. And we all go through those different year itches, I guess, and I'm going through that right now. But a lot of times, what usually happens with me is because of that lack of control, I'm constantly struggling with it in my head. I'm constantly thinking about different things. I'm trying to decide how to handle it my best way possible so that I can, deal with whatever issues I've got going, plan or accomplish or whatever. Okay. I'm not trying to be cryptic. I'm struggling with my words tonight. Okay. So anyway, what happens with me mostly when I am feeling a little bit or even a little bit, but a lot of times it's when I'm in a major rut, is that I'm so in my head and I'm so trying to control the pain and whatever kind of pain that may be, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's confusion, whether it's, fear-based, whatever the emotions being. It's hard to really focus outside of myself. Okay. Now, that was really in-depth way of explaining a thought process when you're under stress. Okay. From my eyes. Now, in that state of mind, what happened, the simplest thing ever that got me so far deep in my head, I said, let's just really get out there and talk about this and kind of bring up what I see as issues in society and possible solutions in the moment. I was on my way to work. I was struggling that day. So even though I wasn't late for work or anything like that, but I was in a constant state of anxiety. At any given time, I could break out in tears. At any given time, I can react defensively, not in a major defensive way. I'm not saying I've been fighting or anything like that, but I was very triggered. That's the word. Okay. That's the word I've been struggling to come up with. Very triggered. It was easy for me to get triggered in any way. And I remember being in the turning lane. Okay. This one light that's right as soon as I exit my street, this one light, the light takes forever. And that drives me crazy, especially in the mornings when I'm in a hurry to get to work. And we have a very fine timeline to get through that light before traffic starts building. And it's a lot of times make or break whether I get to work on time. So I'm really get stressed at that light anyway. So anyway, I'm on my way to work on a night shift. No big deal. I'm not running late or anything else, but I am in my head, and I feel if I would stop and really pay attention and try to meditate, I'd realize that I am clenching inside because that was my constant state of mind, because of the phase that I'm in, because of situations and everything else, okay? This is also going to show the butterfly effect, by the way. I've talked about this before anyway. I've actually talked about the scenario before where it could be something small, like somebody cut you off in traffic. They don't even know they did it, and how you can respond to that, how you can take it through your day and affect other people, and it could lead to something huge. So let's link this together, but that's not what I was going to, that's part of it, but that's not what I'm getting at. So anyway, I'm in the straight lane, or the turning lane, where you can also go straight, okay? Picture it, okay? I'm either going to go straight or I'm going to turn my turn signal on and I'm going to make a left turn as long as there's nobody coming from the other side, because they have that option too. In that same lane, they can either turn their turn signal on and make their left turn, or they can go straight. Now, if they go straight, I have to stop and yield to them. If they turn their left turn signal on, then we can turn at the same time. Okay, so you're seeing the scenario there. Now, stereo is no big deal, but the effects that I suffered they weren't major, anything like that, but this is what got me on my head. I was standing there waiting, knowing that this light takes forever, and knowing that it doesn't stay green for very long, and I'm already frustrated because, I can tell that I was in a higher state of frustration that day because I had very little tolerance for anything traffic related. That's going to be my make or break point. Okay, that's going to be my stress level right there. So I pull up in the intersection and I'm waiting because this truck that was sitting there, they have the right of way because they don't have their turn signal on. The person in front of me made a left turn and that truck was still sitting there. So I pull up and I realize, I'm like, well, they have the right of way. They need to go. Start your truck, move forward, and go. And I'm getting frustrated, like, come on, move. You have priority. If I make a left turn and all of a sudden you shoot up in front of me, I'm going to cause an accident. It's going to be my fault. But at the same time, I'm thinking, get your truck moving because there's somebody behind me. So they stood there and they waited and they waited and they waited. And then finally, I'm trying to remember because they either finally did go and they went straight, or they finally pulled up. And that's what they did, because they did a double whammy. They pulled up when they realized I was sitting there, because I actually started waving them like, come on, you've got all these people waiting. They pulled up, and then they quickly turned on their turn signal and went ahead and made a left turn. Therefore, as soon as I saw the turn signal, I jetted it and made my left turn so the people behind me didn't have to wait through another light. And I got so frustrated, and immediately I started saying this. Yeah, I talked to myself. Shocker, but I talked to myself in my car. And I started saying this. I'm like, oh my God, idiot, you don't even know how to drive. And I started ranting and raving about how they needed to turn their turn signal on. They they didn't have the right of way actually, but that they needed to turn their turn signal on, and then they wouldn't have held any of us up. And then I realized that they were sitting there for a while because they were letting us go. I think a lot of times people are afraid to pull up into the intersection. They wait at the line until it looks free and clear, and then they go. People, come on now. You are allowed to pull up in here. Well, I can't speak for the law. I don't know. But I know that in that case, I am allowed to pull into the intersection and either wait for them to go straight past me and then turn behind them, or make my left turn if they're going to make their left turn, just as long as I don't pull up too far and, hit them. They had plenty of room to pull up in the intersection as well. So my point is, I'm sitting here and I'm ranting and raving, partially out loud and partially in my head. I'm going through all these scenarios because this is how much I was affected. I'm going through all these scenarios thinking about what an idiot this person was, because they're holding up all these people by being dumb. This is what's going on in my mind. Now I'll explain. And I'm getting irritated about that because I'm like, if you live in Georgia, it's in this, it's so overly crowded and it's so crazy on the streets, and there's so many vehicles out there and we go fast and everything else. I'm like, you are a safety hazard just because you're not keeping up with the times here. It's like, come on, think. Get out there and do what you got to do. Stop holding people up. Stop, you have the potential of causing accidents and everything else. The turn signal's there for a reason. All these things are going through my mind, and I'm getting really, really irritated. And I'm driving, and my anxiety is getting higher. Like I said, I'm already previously in defense mode because of everything else, which is part of it. Okay? Now, like I said, in my brain, here's the progression, because this is also me, and I'm the person that always thinks things through. I don't try to, it just automatically happens. I'm irritated and personally offended by this person, looking at them like they are idiots and that they could possibly cause an accident, how wrong they are right off the bat. And then I started thinking, yeah, it's probably some person, by the way they were sitting there, in their minds, they were trying to help everybody else. Let everybody else go first. And I'm thinking, how stupid is that? I can't read their mind. They have priority. Since they didn't have their turn signal on, they had priority. So for them to just sit there trying to be nice and let me go first, that's stupid. They need to just follow the rules and go on. Okay, so here's the little small switch in my mind that was changing. Is it took it from this person's an idiot, or this person's just doing things on purpose without even thinking, to they were probably trying to be nice and accommodate everybody else. Okay, so I just softened them in my brain, but I'm still irritated with them. Because now I'm looking at them like, no, they need to get out there in the real world and stop trying to be so nice, blah, blah, blah. Now, believe it or not, this is the depth of my thoughts. This is how I will start relating things. Even though that was just the simplest little things, I will start thinking of all these different concepts. Harden yourself in this world, which I go against that concept, but my reactions are that. Okay, I can think about it and talk myself out of it, but initial reactions in cases like this are get hard, get out there, take care of business. We don't have time to, coddle people, because then an accident can happen and it would really be your fault just because you're trying to be nice. Okay, so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about that. Like I said, it progressed to the point where the other person was no longer a jerk. They're probably a nice person just trying to do something nice, but they're still an idiot for doing that. Okay? So then I took it a step further, and in my brain, because I just keep picturing a scenario, and it just keeps coming to me. I picture a teenager, and I'm like, it was probably like, what if that was like a teenager sitting there, and on top of it, they were too scared. They really didn't know what to do. They were nervous because, that intersection there's a lot of turns. There's a lot of different lights for different turns. And there's a lot of cars that sit there. And like I said, it's a long wait for the one, and then you got to get through there quickly. So if you're a teenager coming from the other side, or someone who's not used to driving or not confident in driving, that immediate, like, okay, make your decision. Are you going to go straight? Are you going to go, are you going to sit back here and wait for that car that's coming towards you? Are you going to get into the intersection and, show you've got some guts to you? Whatever. This is, what goes on in my head when, this is the narration that goes on in my head in these case scenarios. So now I'm picturing a teenager. That takes my brain in another place. I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, so, an inexperienced person out there in this world today, in Georgia, which is a crazy place, what would have happened if, because that inexperienced teenager might have been too scared to get up into the intersection and let me know what they were doing? And then what if they would have had a knee-jerk reaction at the last second because they realized I'm waving him through? And what if all of a sudden they would have shot through when I finally gave up and made a turn? Now I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, now we've got all this inexperience, this young, kid who doesn't know anything. He's all naive, or she's all naive, whatever. So it's not really their fault, but at the same time, what a safety hazard is that? And then I take it a step further. In my brain, I picture a specific teenager. I know. A lot of you are thinking, this is a little crazy. Do you really go this far with things? I do. But the thing is, if you really think about it, I bet you do as well without really, I've got a radio show. So when I think about this kind of stuff, not only does it just trigger, life events for me in general as a fascinating thing, but it also sticks in my mind as a concept to come on here and talk about. So, but if you think about it, you probably have similar situations where your mind has just taken it in all these different places, all these different possibilities, right? So anyway, all of a sudden, I picture a specific teenager. So actually, in this case, I pictured a coworker's daughter, who, just graduated, as a matter of fact, a few days ago. And, I was there from the time she was 3 years old. When I first met her, she was like 3 years old. Now she's graduated. And I remember actually borrowing the car that she was getting ready to learn to drive in, and then it became her car. So, I followed her progression since she was 3 years old. So now I'm putting a personality and a face to that teenager, and I'm still picturing the same scenario. Like, wow. I loosened up, I lightened up, my heart softened. The more personalization I put on the situation. That's the point. That's the point of this whole thing. Because in that short period of time, when that situation happened, which it wasn't, the thing is, probably nobody else noticed that. Or maybe the people behind me noticed and they probably thought, okay, yeah, the person in front of me is probably going to get irritated because that truck over there is just sitting there. But, 2 seconds after, we all move along, nobody's even going to pay attention to it. But that is where my mind went. And by the time it got to the personalization, here's what had changed in my mind on the scenario. It went from, that person's an idiot, or they're sitting there, they're holding me up, they're going to cause an accident, they don't even know how to drive, or they're just being a jerk sitting there knowing that there's 10,000 people trying to get through this light, and all these negative things, going through my mind, where I'm actually getting angry and taking it personally, even though they don't know me, I don't know them. We have absolutely no idea what's going on in the other person's head. To all these little things that started kind of getting less personal about me as the, quote, victim, more personal in my mind about the, quote, offender. And as I personalized the situation, I put a face to the person, I put a personality to the person, I put their intentions as a possibility. Say they were there, trying to let us all go so that we didn't get held up, instead of them going, all this kind of stuff. I softened my whole attitude. Now, all this happened on a situation where I will never know what the situation really was. I'll never know if it was somebody sitting there texting on their phone instead of paying attention, therefore they didn't even know I was sitting there. Whether it was somebody sitting at that light going, this light takes forever, dude, watch this. Let's see how long I can hold them up. Or if it was a little senior citizen, and I'm not saying this in a condescending way, because there's a lot of senior citizens that are very good drivers, but we picture that stereotypical, little senior citizen that can't see very well, or, that drives slower as they get older, because some do. It's the same as stereotyping a teenager, so, I'm not trying to condescend, but, or it could have been that scenario where they were unaware that they were doing anything, or they were even trying to give me the right of way, or in their mind they thought 100, or whoever it was, maybe thought 100% sure that, no, you don't go in the intersection. Yes, they have priority. They would have been wrong, because they would have had priority if they were going straight, of course. All of those different things. Now, like I said, I know that's a crazy scenario. That's a small scenario for me to come up with so many major issues. But they're not issues. They were just things to think about. Because where did that take me? It took me in a mindset of thinking along the lines of, how many things in a daytime, in a week's time, in a month's time, in a lifetime, do we take personally when another person has absolutely no you even exist? They have absolutely no idea who you are. They don't even know that they're doing something or they're not doing something, but we perceive it that way. We take it personally and we hold on to it, or we react to it. Now, taking you back to what I was talking about in a different show, because I had brought this up and I don't even remember which show. It was a show about healing basically every day. Or healing, that pretty much every day, if you really think about it, there's things to heal from on the smallest level, not major big time thing. And my example was, if I remember correctly, it was a traffic thing. Shocker, you can kind of see where a lot of my stress level is traffic. But that was actually my scenario, and that was going to work and having somebody cut me off. Okay, cut me off to get in an exit lane or something like that. And that's what I was talking about with the example that I had given was, say this person cut me off And I got really mad, same scenario, thinking, what a jerk. They put themselves priority. They're not even, them getting to that off ramp, cutting me off, going right in front of me or whatever they were doing, could have caused an accident, all so that they can, get, instead of being extended to the next exit, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that was the scenario I had given, where that could have affected my day. It could have caused me to become so defensive and within myself if I took it too personally. And now I'm not talking about me on a personal level. I'm talking about anybody, okay? But the concept being, in this case, traffic. I'm going to give other examples. I'm going to try to think of some other examples so that we're not always talking about traffic, but things that people may do that we automatically will react in a personal way because we're not, a lot of times we don't stop and think, okay, how could that have been personal? The funny thing is I will stop and think that way. Even in traffic, a lot of times I'll stop and think, is that one out of, 500 person that is so angry in life that they want to anger somebody on their way to work. So they'll do the smallest thing knowing that it'll cause anger, with somebody. Okay, I will actually sit there and think, did that person have intentions of just being a jerk and just trying to cause my day to start off bad? Were they just being selfish, trying to make their escape off the freeway priority to my safety? Or were they completely oblivious to what they did? Were they completely oblivious that I was even cut off? Therefore, they're on their happy way and don't even think twice about anything, and I'm stuck here fuming over the situation. Okay, so those things do come to my mind a lot of times when that's going on. But that scenario, what I had talked about, like I said, at whatever show that was, is we could react from that particular scenario and take it personally. Now we're angry. Okay, I'm angry. That guy cut me off, and I'm thinking all the different things that he or she could have done, and instead they chose to do that. Who knows? I can bring up issues in my own life. I could react based on, issues in my own life that, okay, once again, somebody putting themselves above me. Once again, somebody just cutting me off. There's the key right there. How many times have I talked about, for whatever reason, that little demon I'm trying to fight and figure out why people automatically cut me off when I'm in the middle of talking or whatever the scenario is. That could come into play. Okay? I could respond. I can go from 0 to 60 because I'm tired of people cutting me off instead of listening what I have to say. That could be the exact same scenario, but yet in a car. They just cut me off because they automatically made themselves priority. They automatically just expected me to stop for them. Okay? It's getting deep real quick here, but do you see where I'm going with this? Is that something like that, if you take it personally, it could affect your whole day. I can turn around and get into a car accident because now I'm angry. The next person who even flinches, I could say, you are not cutting me off because of, issues. This may actually make you understand, and no, let's just, right off the bat, I'm going to say, I'm not that bad. I am actually not a big, huge, angry person. So when I'm telling these, I'm exaggerating them to a certain degree, these stories, to make people understand how, the thought processes go and how we can misunderstand situations or people and how it can lead us in different directions if we don't flip the switch and look for different things in different situations, which is always the common denominator with these stories, by the way, if you haven't understood that by now. Okay, so, but my point with that one, like I said, continuing on that, somebody cuts you off and you get angry and you sit there and you really start trying to analyze, and you consume yourself with that person. You can go to work and snap at somebody else because now you're in a bad mood. Maybe that person, you affected them in a certain way because they're at their final straw. You never know. That's where the butterfly effect comes into play. Okay? You never know where an attitude can take off. You never know how it can affect others. That's pretty much the concept here, is your attitude. An attitude. If you take things too personally, to where you react without trying to curtail it, with understanding that not everything is personal toward you, So the anger part of it, you can get irritated with somebody making a mistake or doing something stupid like almost causing an accident or whatever. But to get overly angry about it on a personal level, a lot of that actually shows desensitization. That's what I was saying at the very beginning where I said it sounds like an oxymoron. A lot of the reason I believe that people are reacting in these kind of ways, and it's not just with the traffic, it's with things like school shootings. Now, I'm not going to go deep into that. That's too controversial right now. There's too much to it anyway. And this is only a small perspective from my point of view. My point being, the world has become so desensitized. Okay? Now, whatever you want to blame that on, because there's all opposing sides, wants to blame it on different reasons. Why? As a collective unit, a lot of us are more desensitized to everyday situations. Okay? Maybe in traffic, us being desensitized because we're so used to all this stuff happening in the world, we're not paying that much attention. We're unfocused. Okay? We don't react quick enough to different situations because we are numbing ourselves. How's that? Our focus isn't there, okay? And with that, something happens, scares us in a moment's notice, like in traffic. We immediately, because of that desensitization, I'm now desensitized toward that other person. My first instinct isn't, oh, maybe they made a mistake. Maybe my first instinct is, they did that and it could have done this to me. They did that to me. Okay, so I took it personally, and then I reacted to it, and then I continued the day affecting other people. And you never know, like I said before, you never know what somebody's tolerance toward a certain thing inside is. Like I gave you that example, me being cut off. Okay, that could have been a huge catalyst. Even though that was a small situation, if I was really, really up in arms about that, that could have been the last straw. Okay, so continuing on with the attitude, because we are taking things so personally based on being desensitized, and we're reacting defensively toward people without even trying to figure out if there could be another innocent side to situations that don't need to go to a place of anger. We can continue the attitude, we can continue the treatment, we can spread that, pass it along, affect everybody else like a virus. Butterfly effect, affect everybody else like a virus. Okay? Other people can respond the same way, take things personally. They could be at the end of their rope. You never know what could happen. All right. Now, that all is actually a very intense concept. That started off with somebody who just chose to turn their turn signal on at the last second. Something so small, but it really opens up a lot of doors in my head as to why world events are happening that are happening. Okay? We're desensitized. We are, for whatever reason, and there's many different reasons, but different people could be desensitized because of different reasons. So we can't even collectively just say we're desensitized because of video games. We're desensitized because of music. It all depends on what affects you on a personal level. We could be desensitized because of parenting. We could be desensitized because of school, whatever goes on in your school. You can have one sentence said to you that sticks with you forever, so you've got to be careful on what you say to people as well. In a taking responsibility kind of way is what I'm saying. There's so many different parts to it. There's so many different things. Like I said, it can open up 1,000 different doors, and in my head it does. It opens up 1,000 different doors. So the moral of my story here, and this is something that I did think about on my way to work. I felt guilty because I sat here going, this is something that you would be telling everybody else, like I am right now at this moment. I'm telling everybody about how taking things personally without knowing that they are personal toward you and keeping that poor attitude going, therefore affecting other people, that's something that I got out of the situation. But in that moment, I did the same thing as everybody else. I reacted, okay? I am a work in progress as well. I reacted emotionally. I let it affect me. And I'm glad that my wheels started turning with all these little scenarios. Like I told you, next thing you know, I put the face to the, the person, and I put the mindset and everything else. But because I did it, that's also called empathy and putting yourself in other people's shoes and understanding, different situations that could happen. Another major point I'm trying to make is that you never actually know, in most case scenarios, what is happening, what's going on, what's in a person's head, what their intentions are. You don't know what they've dealt with. You don't know what's built up inside them. And I'm talking from both sides. I'm talking about the person that I'm sitting here holding accountable for not turning their turn signal on, all the way up to the person who I may affect in the process of me being irritated, who may turn around and act with an extreme reaction based on this, what I consider the smallest little interaction. Okay? Now, I can put myself all over this one. I can put myself from the side of the person who made the mistake. Okay? I just did that. The thing I keep, kind of, brushing over. I made a mistake at work, and I was in that position where I was the person who made the mistake. My intentions weren't bad. The intention wasn't there to do something bad, to make a mistake, okay? But I was that person. But I was also a person at some point who responded to a situation, something being said to me, something being done toward me, that I just automatically took in a personal way. Something that might not have had anything to do with me that I took personally. And these are all different scenarios. This isn't anything that happened. This doesn't have anything to do with work or anything else. But I'm just saying, I've also been that person who has responded because I've taken things personally that may or may not have been personal toward me. And I've also been that person who threw it out with the attitude, the continued attitude, and affected other people to where I don't know how far it might have affected them. I might have been affected by something that may or may not have actually been meant toward me. I may have thrown that attitude towards somebody, meaning to or not meaning to. It could have affected them. I'll never know how, and this is a lifetime I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a scenario. I'm talking about a lifetime. I've also been that person who who was on the very end of that line, who got snapped at by somebody without having any idea what had built up through them, through the day, built up inside of them through the day. I've been that person, and I've taken it personally, but I've also at different times been able to think the way I think now. And maybe not even in the moment. Sometimes it takes, a little bit. So it's not always an instant thing that I'm able to do. But I am able to stop at some point and try to think, what were the intentions? Were the intentions really there? Was it personal toward me? Was it something that somebody's... there goes my microphone. Was it something that somebody threw at me because of redirection? Okay, I told you about that. I think I said that last week. I'm pretty sure that was last week's show where I was talking about I was very upset over a scenario. And it's a classic example as well of, a lot of I don't know thrown in with a lot of reacting on a personal level because it affected me personally, to responding to other people, in a negative way out of redirection and picking a scenario to basically redirect all the angst onto a person that had nothing to do with any of the scenarios. I talked about that last week, so I'm not going to reiterate it, but you see how all this can end up really being a big deal. And there's small steps throughout the process. There are small steps that we collectively and individually can do. Things that I do work on now, trying to constantly heal myself from situations that cause me to react, from my own personal situations that might cause me to react to other people and other situations that have nothing to do with my past, or the way that I may react to the person or situation that happens to me, or that I take as happening to me. I put myself in other people's possible shoes. I put myself in other people's actual shoes, not their physical shoes, but I'm talking about like if I know a person's situation, I will make more of an effort to really detach myself from any kind of personal effects and really think how they are thinking. So anything offset toward me isn't on purpose because they deal with their own stuff. Okay. And this probably sounds confusing, and I'm not trying to be confusing, but there's so many things that I'm able to talk about to you because I've learned over a lifetime, and because my thoughts are as, collective as they are and expansive. There it is. My thoughts are expansive at this point, where I can think of a situation like that and I can start looking at it and picking it apart from different angles in an automatic attempt to desensitize myself, not in the bad way, desensitize myself so that I'm not personally affected in a negative way. Therefore, I can be neutral in the emotional reaction, whether it's a traffic thing, whether it's somebody snapping at me or somebody saying something that hits me wrong, or it could be anything. But these are the things that I'm trying to pass along, is that it makes a huge difference in how people respond to each other. It makes a huge difference on how much we take inside ourselves. How much we personalize and how much that builds up within. I know about all this. I'm, perfect example of allowing stuff like this to happen over a lifetime, to where the last many years I'm trying to chip away at a lot of that stuff and get it back off of me. That wasn't mine. Get it off. Why did I take that when it's not mine? Push it away. That's not mine. So why did I respond on a personal level to it? Why did I take it personally? It's not mine. Let it go. And, forgiveness and everything else. So, while, like I said, that sounds like it's the smallest scenario ever and the most random scenario ever, it really is one of many doors to open up and look at from all these different angles of life stuff. We in this universe right now are so desensitized to other people's feelings, but we're so sensitive and overreactive, and we take things personally even when we know they aren't personal. That's the thing. Why would that person, like I said, that 1 in 500 people who might be a jerk and say, haha, watch this, I'm gonna mess up everyone's day because I have a miserable life. How often does that really happen? Okay, I doubt very much that really happens that often. But to automatically look at that person, and think that they did something on purpose to mess up everybody's day is a little cray-cray, But the reaction might be there. And I know I'm not the only person who does react at certain times. And I don't react this way very often. But that day, it hit me in a certain, certain frame of mind on my way to work, which is when I'm on my way to work, a lot of times my brain is active. I may not remember passing different exits. I may not remember from the time I got in my car till the time I got to work, because I say a lot of times that's probably my meditation. Different people meditate in different ways. And I say a lot of times that's like my meditation, because I can't really recall a whole lot on the way to work. But let me tell you, my brain's on fire. And I pick apart a lot of things that just start coming to me. And it is that smallest little scenario right there that you can learn so much from, because you learn a lot about yourself, your own reactions to things, your own triggers. You can learn lessons if you analyze. A lot of people don't analyze. You think I overanalyze? Well, here's the thing. Look at how much I learned just by thinking about a scenario. I just thought about the scenario. It's not making me crazy. It's not making me tense to think of this scenario. but just to kind of wander off and think of all these different scenarios that could be connected to that smallest thing, but the big life lessons that come from it, all the realizations about who I am and how I respond to things and what I may have trapped and what could be my triggers based on the smallest little scenario that I just chose to think about. I think people need to open up their minds a lot more in society right now to those small little situations and understand and learn how to respond and react better before the big situations build up and happen. The small scenarios like that need to be figured out before the big scenarios happen, because we've let things build up to a point of explosion. Okay? That's how I look at the world. That's how I see things. That's why that stupid little scenario was a big deal. That was a big deal. It was a big deal because of everything that started coming into my head with that. So I said I was going to talk about a couple other scenarios because we have, about 10 minutes, and that was really, that was really the mindset I had. Yeah, that was the main point I wanted to get out by that. But let me come up with a couple different scenarios from, let me see. Let me think for a second, because they can be all different scenarios. Some of them could be personal, okay? They could be relationship scenarios. You can have a situation, well, I can't really come up with a really good one in the time I have left, but anything from, okay, that one, the traffic one. Those are two people don't know each other, never even saw the person's face. They could be listening to this story right now and not even realize that they were the person. I could have come to work and talked to them all day and not even realize that they were the person. So it could be the smallest scenario that could have built up into the stupidest thing, the biggest explosion, depending on all of the surrounding circumstances of anger and frustration and reaction and such. Or it could be the most personal thing in the world. Maybe your mom says something to you, okay? Maybe your mom woke up one morning, had a dream about you and your boyfriend or someone you're dating. And the dream was that he was that he had beaten you up, or that he had done something really disgusting or very hurtful or whatever. Just say that, like I said, you can come up with any scenario in the world, and they can be the smallest things, but they can be significant. So say, because of that dream, she's bothered. She has an uneasy feeling about this guy. And the dream, I had a show about dreams. I think dreams are really significant, but I've also had dreams before where they represented something totally different. So say in that dream, what her representation was of fear of maybe you making a bad choice in your job, okay? But it was represented in her dream as the guy, because he was the figure put in her dream representing a choice that you made, okay? That's how I think that a lot of things are linked in dreams. So say it had nothing to do with the guy, that he could be cream of the crop. But for whatever reason, your mom, for that reason, of course, your mom suddenly has this feeling and this uneasiness. So she might say something towards you about it, okay? And you may respond to that in a negative way. Well, that might not have been the greatest scenario. That was more of a dream scenario. Well, let's just roll with it. I don't know. Just say, here's everybody in this scenario is an innocent victim, but your mom was affected by something within her. Okay. So maybe this is the point, y'all. She has a family party, Sunday dinner at Italian grandma's house. That's what we used to have, and everyone's there, including you and your significant other, your boyfriend, whatever. Your mom's there. And your mom is acting normal. You have no idea about this dream. You have no idea about her feelings, whatever. And your boyfriend maybe makes a joke about something, like I'll backhand you or something like that. Something that maybe he would never do, but your mom suddenly has a reaction to it. Everyone's confused. Your mom is responding to something that's internal. She can't put an assignment, a blame. She can't assign a blame to him because he's never hit you. But she's responding to something she doesn't understand, and you're obviously going to respond to that. that was more, like I said, that may not have been the best example in the world. You can come up with a bunch of different examples. In some cases, like I said, it could be actually very personal, people in your life, but you can respond to something personally that isn't personal, and it could cause damage if you don't, really put yourself in another person's shoes. You can, I mean, I've had that scenario before, or like I said, it could be something like that traffic light thing where absolutely none of it's personal whatsoever, and you'll never even know. I'll never even know anything, about it. Who, the mindset, the person, the age, anything like that. So I hope I got my point across. I know that it sounded like just kind of a crazy analogy, but like I said, the smallest thing, if you can, I'm gonna ask people to do that as a homework assignment. Think of something small that you might react to. If you're out in traffic, or you get a phone call, or somebody says something to you, or somebody gives a look and you received it, maybe differently, or you're not sure how to receive it. Start analyzing things. Start putting yourselves in their shoes, or come up with different possible scenarios. Because if there are other possible scenarios, and there's no way of knowing, you can't take it personally. And start paying attention to how much you might take personally that might be issues within yourself, and other people may have absolutely no intentions, bad intentions towards you. They may have no realization that it's an issue within you. They may not even realize that they've done or said anything or anything like that even affected you. They might not even realize you're in the room, but you could respond internally. When I say you, I mean me. I do this, and there are certain areas of life I do this, and it does affect me. And these small analogies, these little analysis sessions I have are really good for me, because it keeps things in perspective. My personal goal is to keep thinking along the lines that I do, keep trying to implement my breakdowns. I guess when I say I'm breaking the situation down into all these different possibilities, is to do it sooner and sooner after I'm affected by a situation. Because the worst thing is when I might react and it might affect me. It might affect a situation or a person, or my relationship with a person or anything like that. And then over time, when I'm in a different place, I start looking at it in a different way. Or I talk to that person and they tell me something that makes me realize I was just wrong. Therefore, I went through all of this. Or I affected us in our friendship or anything like that. My goal for me personally is to continue along my thought processes and try to implement those breakdowns a little sooner, not elongate it, as soon as I can. Obviously, I always say we respond emotionally to situations, yes. So, the day that I can respond by analysis before I respond emotionally, well, I don't even think that's possible, but I'm trying to shorten the emotional time if it's not warranted. Feel your emotions. You're supposed to feel your emotions, but my point with this is feeling emotions that may not be warranted, because you can learn a lot from situations like that, but this is part of what I'm learning, is dealing with those situations before I get overly emotional or I create a whole scenario in my head based on what I think I am experiencing. Okay. So anyway, I hope that wasn't too all over the place. I want to thank everybody for listening once again. Stay tuned right now for Be the Change with Tiffany Lewis, and I will talk to all of you next Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on clearsourceradio.com. And in case you haven't heard, you can now listen to the show on iHeartRadio as well. All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.